And coming to you live from the News Hub, this is Midday Live. A very good afternoon to you. My name is Nanekia Mensah Brampa. Coming up in the bulletin this afternoon. The Public Utilities Workers Union decries lack of transparency in processes leading to selection of Meralco Consortium under ECG concessionaire. Public Interest and Accountability Committee to prosecute culprits in profligate spending of oil revenue. And later on in the foreign front, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa cut short his attendance at Commonwealth Summit in London to deal with violent protests home. And later on in sports, Arsene Wenger to leave Arsenal as he end of the season, ending a near 22-year reign as manager. Right, so we have the detail of these as well as the latest in the entertainment world all in the next 60 minutes. Stay with us on Facebook and Twitter. It's TV3 Ghana, also on DSTV channel 279. To the detail now, and the Public Utilities Workers Union Puwu says there was lack of transparency in the process of announcing a concessionaire. Now, General Secretary of the Public Utility Workers Union, Michael Idumata Nyantechi, has been speaking to TV3.
This $500 million is over a period of 5 years. That is where we have always been saying that if we were allowing ECG to run, even based on the same terms they are giving to the concessionaire, without any interference from government and those things, the $500 million we are talking about, averagely, is about 5 months and revenue that ECG mobilizes. If you take companies like Engie, Enel, EDF of France, these are the power utility companies top notch in Europe. And Meralco cannot come anywhere near any of these. So it's not a question of they not having the financial clout or those things. So it shows that if all these companies pulled out, there is something that is fundamentally amiss with this whole process. But it's not a question of transparency. Maybe they might have seen through that the way we are going about it is not the right way. And you know, in many of the European countries, they would do proper due diligence, which I would say a lot of the Asian companies don't. They may gloss over so many things.
Again, the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU, is calling on the Millennium Development Authority, MIDA, to provide clarity on the choice of Meralco to manage the Electricity Company of Ghana. General Secretary of ICU, Solomon Kute, spoke to TV3 after MIDA announced Meralco Consortium as winners of the ECG concession bid.
How they were selected, if that story can be told to Ghanaians, that would be perfect. In fact, in the process of that, those who walked out, okay, could also come and say, this story is either true or not true. But for now, the process must come to this due diligence element that have been carried out. So for now, let's give them the benefit of the doubt until those who walked out will come back and say, this is what happened to us, this is what they did to us. Because even in the same interview, they demanded 1 billion from you and they demanded 500 million from somebody, okay? Then we can say it is unfair. Or we were able also to package our clientele base to the fact that we have also done the same job here, that job here, looking at the size of the country, what we have done in other places, the resourcement that we have, what we have done. If all those things, you know, have come to the play and eventually Meralco have been chosen, for me, fine. Other than that, we want to hear from those who either were dropped or failed if they have better story to tell against Meralco.
Right, so the matter continues now, and it's a Manila electric company, Meralco, there. But really, how did the whole bidding process start, and how did we get here so far? Well, Kojo Poku is an energy analyst, and he joins us right here on Middaylive to give us a breakdown of how exactly we got this far.
Good afternoon.
Kojo, good to see you.
How are you?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
Thank you.
Right, so tell us, Kojo, what are the specifics of this takeover? First of all, before we go into the goals and objectives of this Millennium Challenge Compact.
Well, the objective of this takeover is basically to have a PSP, which is a private sector participation in ECG. Government is no longer interested in owning ECG. They want a private sector-led investment. They want a private sector-led operations. So the objective is to now inject capital and innovation into the operations of ECG. Those is the basic that surround this whole compact issue. And I think that was what the Mahama-led administration took to the US and told them that, look, we have a distribution company, we want to inject money into it, and that's how the conversation for all this compact started. Okay, so
Kojo will be engaging us with a touch screen from how it started, talking about the history and how far we've come. So take us on, Kojo.
Okay, basically, a lot of people have talked about this compact and make it look like it was imposed on us and it's a bad thing. It's not. Look, let's look at the three main areas of what the compact seeks to achieve for Ghanaians. If you look at A, increase private sector investment and productive profitability of micro, small, and medium large-scale business, increase employment opportunities for men and women, raise earnings potential for self-employed, improve social comments, outcomes for men and women. These are the fabric of the compact. The Americans, in conjunction with the Mahama-led administration, felt that if we have a better running ECG, we can achieve these three areas. So that is what led into the conviction that, look, let's bring in a private sector participation, not a sale, because, you know, ongoing people have said, oh, ECG is being sold. It's not. It's a private sector participation where it will be taken for 20 years by the company, which is Meralco, Manila Electric Company.
We'll get to the company shortly, but I'm sure Ghanaians would want to know the specifics of what exactly Meralco will be doing with ECG. For instance, is it going to be a distribution thing they're going to get involved in, or what should we expect?
Well, everything ECG does, ECG is into distribution of electricity. So basically the customer service, the distribution, the engineering, the wiring, everything for now, in terms of if you have a problem with ECG, you call a customer service. Everything ECG does is what this Manila company is going to do. Now, let's put it in context. There's still going to be ECG. ECG is not going to be collapsed or closed down. The company ECG is still, Electricity Company of Ghana, is still going to be there. But there would only be an oversight company, and they would hold the power purchase agreements that the company have signed. Then transfer the operational part of ECG to the new company that will be formed, which will be the Meralco.
Now, let's look at Meralco as an organization. What are we looking at with this particular company? I know it's a Manila electric company, but what more should we know about the company?
Well, the company is one of the main electric companies in Philippines. Manila is the capital of Philippines, and the company was formed in 1919, which is close to over 100 years now. And they started off as electricity and a transport company. But over the years, they have now metamorphosed into just electricity company. Distribution is their core business. So now they are in the Manila metro area, which has a population of about 13 million. And that's very important, because if you hear Puwu, Mr. Nyanchechi says that competence is very important. Now, there's a company that's coming from Philippines. Philippines have 103 million population. Ghana, we have not even up to 30 million. The company runs in an area that operates over 13 million basically clients. So you realize that them having that track record of operating in the Manila Metro, 22 cities, 89 municipalities is very important for us to know the kind of company that we are looking at. Then you look at what have they done in the past. They've been able to acquire some gas companies in the Philippines, and by 1930 they went into hydropower plants and have about 23 megawatt plants which they have been running. You can also look at the issue of who are the shareholders of the company, and the shareholding. These are some of the cities that they run in: Bogota, River, and all these cities in Philippines. But I want to get to the The shareholding. Okay, these are the shareholding of the company.
Okay.
Beacon Electric Assets hold 49%. GJ Summit holding 23%. First Philippine holding 3.9%. Then the government has some 5% in there. Then there are smaller holdings in the company. So it's a company that has been in operation for over 100 years. And I think it's very important for Ghanaians to understand that part.
Okay, now let's look at how long this concession would last. Looking at the new governments coming in to review the dates.
Well, in the past, it was 25 years.
Right.
Now it's 20 years. Now the 20 years have timelines, okay? There's going to be a review every year. So there's going to, ECG, which is going to be the supervising company, is going to review the performance of these companies every year. Then there's going to be a 5-year review, which is going to be a mega review. Now, you've heard of these monies that the compact is injecting. And you've heard the money that the concessionaire, which is now Meralco, is going to inject into this. They are to inject $500 million, $100 million every year for the next 5 years. Okay. So every year, ECG is going to make sure that the consortium, which is the 51% Ghanaian consortium that will be formed, I don't know who they are yet, to partner the Meralco people would have to raise 100 million every year for the next 5 years. So then they will now invest these 100 million a year in specific areas, because the compact states the areas where these monies are to be invested to decrease waste, which is basically what we call losses in electricity. Is that when you have old and obsolete machinery and lines, electricity on these lines will dissipate. Now in Ghana, we have technical and commercial losses about 15 to 21%. That has to be reduced to about 5%, which is the industry standard around the world. So it means that if we send 1,000 cedis worth of electricity on the lines, we only lose 5% of it. Okay. Now we are losing about 180 Ghana cedis worth of it.
Kojo, but just before we wrap up on this particular session, I know you were somewhere a part of the bidding process. I don't know if you were part.
No, we're not part of the bidding. There was a company called, there was a group called Concession. Okay. We came in to help the union because they felt that ECG and the union, the ECG workers felt that their voice were not being heard enough. So a group of us came together to basically help to make sure that the right thing was done for the ECG workers and Ghanaians.
Okay, I understand Mida has justified this particular one for Meralco, but what really went into this particular choice of Mida finally? As bidders were, I understand there were more bidders there. Well, to me, there were 6 initially.
Along the line, some fell off. By the time the bidders submitted their bid, there was only 2 companies, BXC and Manila. BXC, from what I heard, was disqualified due to technicalities. So it was really a one-man horse race. So we will need to know the criteria and the scores, and people are asking. I'm sure in due time, Mida will make it public what went into the criteria and what scores they got. People can get those information.
Well, on that particular one, Mida has reacted. And Kojo Poku, we are so grateful for your time this afternoon. Kojo is an energy analyst there. And we understand that Mida has, well, giving reason why they decided to choose Meralco as the choice for the bidding or the concessionaire. So we'll bring you that soundbite quite shortly. But energy think tank Kite Ghana wants the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit into all projects funded with oil revenue. According to Kite, only 3 out of some 31 projects sampled were fully funded by the annual budgetary funds allocated from oil revenue from 2011 to 2016.
This was revealed at the final workshop on the disbursement of funds for priority projects as required by the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. According to the KITE report, Ghana recorded $3.4 billion over the period under review from oil revenue. $1.47 billion was allocated in the budget to fund projects ranging from schools, hospitals, roads, and rural electrification. Out of the 31 projects sampled as priority projects in 91 districts of the country, only 3 were fully funded by the revenue from oil. Executive Director at Kite Ghana Ishmael Ajakumhene says the Auditor General must urgently audit these projects.
That's why we are calling on the Auditor General to go and visit. This shouldn't be Kite. This should be the people that the law said at every point in time they should be doing that. But at the moment, if we consider the fact that 3.5 billion has come to us, and looking at the things that we have. So we don't have a lot to show for that.
He wants a review of the PRMA to ensure effective monitoring and evaluation of projects funded by oil revenue.
One of the things that we believe should be changed is we need to be a little bit more precise when it comes to how the Ministry of Finance should report back to us as to how the monies, because they disperse the monies. The reports at the moment, they just dump a list of projects and put it there. Sometimes they don't even have location. There has to be some changes. There has to be some clear instructions to the people who are supposed to be doing what they are doing.
Right, and so the Public Interest and Accountability Committee says they would prosecute culprits in profligate spending of oil revenue. Now, joining us this afternoon is Dr. Steve Mantia, who is the chairman of the Public Interest Accountability Committee, PIAC. Doc, great to have you this afternoon on Midday Live.
My pleasure.
Now, when you look at the statistics, it must be troubling, I must say.
Oh, yes,
is it?
Yes, indeed it is. And given that we've been here before, we mined gold for over 100 years and became a highly indebted poor country. A huge indictment in the manner in which we manage gold revenues in this country. We are trying to amend the wrongs, but we're still not there yet.
Now, Pierre, during your monitoring to assess the projects, what really did you come out with in terms of quality of these projects? 3 out of 13, if I'm right.
No, the initial inspection was actually 6 projects.
6. And
3 out of the 6 were non-existent. But the findings are largely in 3 categories. And let me make the point that we are not talking about only 6 projects. In 2017, we inspected 40 projects. So in all, 46 projects between 2016 and 2017. And the findings are the same. 3 categories. First, non-existent projects. About half of the projects are non-existent. 2, we have instances of shoddily executed projects. And then thirdly, stalled projects. So these are the 3 main categories of projects that we found during our inspection.
And now, as a civil society group, let's look at how monitoring is when it comes to spending of our oil revenue. How is your monitoring process like?
Well, we are a statutory body, a creation of law. And our mandate, first and foremost, is to ensure strict compliance with the provisions of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act by all those who have anything to do with oil revenues in this country. 2, we are supposed to provide a platform for public debate on spending prospects of oil revenues in this country. And thirdly, we as a body have the mandate to conduct an independent assessment of the management and use of oil revenues. So we have devised ways in which we pursue our 3 mandates. We will normally take data from the various agencies, the Ministry of Finance, GRA, Petroleum Commission, GNPC, etc., and do a desktop analysis in terms of trying to reconcile revenue and expenditure. And then we would make our findings public in our half-year report and then annual reports. After that, we will take our report out, we'll launch it first, and then we'll go on a public outreach with our report where we explain our findings. We never used to do project inspection, but it was during our outreach that many Ghanaians who we engaged raised concern about whether or not we can testify to the existence of the projects we were actually speaking about in our reports. And usually our response would be in the negative. But that in itself drew our attention to the need for us to at least undertake some verification of the projects that we are accounting for in our reports. And this is what led to this.
Now, with the mandate you have outlined so far, let's look at what more can be done to ensure that our public PES, should I say the oil-funded projects, are giving the due worth of the money that is pushed into it. You talk about prosecution there.
Yeah, I make the point that we have done pretty well as a country in trying to change the way in which we manage natural resource revenues.
What can be done?
We need to move a step further to make that critical transition between transparency to accountability. And in that sense, we will need to, and that's what we are doing currently. We've referred our findings to the Auditor General's Department. Next week, we are meeting with the Auditor General. We will be looking at how we proceed with the investigations into these matters.
Okay.
After the investigations, you can be sure we will trigger the necessary prosecutorial processes should any adverse findings be made against any group or individual.
Dr. Mantial, we're so grateful for your time this afternoon. Dr. Steve Mantial is the chairman of the Public Interest Accountability Committee, PIAC. You're watching Midday Live, and when we return, one dead, another in critical condition in a kids' gunplay tragedy at Somanya. Time for business now, and the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation is set to intensify education on the need to generate energy from waste as part of moves to broaden the country's energy mix. Now, according to the ministry, the country produces enough waste which can be used to complement power supply.
The minister was speaking at a workshop to discuss the strides made in inculcating renewable energy into the energy mix in Ghana. The forum, organized by the West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use, brought some partners and researchers on the feasibility of renewable energy in the country. Minister for Science, Environment, Technology and Innovation, Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, emphasized the need for education to be intensified on energy generation from waste.
Education, doing that in the schools, in our homes, and if we educate ourselves and set the priorities, I think we'll be able to achieve that.
He said the various waste management companies are being engaged on the need to properly manage waste. Head of Basic Energy Research Division at the Federal Ministry of Education and Research of Germany, Dr. Christoph Rovenkamp, was optimistic about the use of renewable energy.
Renewable energy are getting more and more important. And for Ghana, it's the same situation like all over the world. We try to decrease the fossil, and then we try to use more and more of the renewables in the future. And it's the way that the Ghanaians go as well.
And that'll do for business. There's more on News 360 tonight. But to a rather sad happening in the Eastern region, a kid's gunplay ended in tragedy in Somanya Thursday afternoon. Now, the tragic incident, which occurred at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, led to the death of a 4-year-old boy. 6-year-old Jerry Ekufu, who shot his 4-year-old brother, is said to have been playing in their room while their parents, Isaac Tete Kwabla and Rebecca, were out of the house. Tenants who were present said they heard a gunshot and rushed out only to find the deceased in a pool of blood. Observations in the room showed that the gun was shot at about just 3 meters and the deceased was hit in the head, bringing his skull content out in the pool of blood. Now, the gun, which the police say is locally manufactured, is not registered. The body has since been taken to Atua Hospital for autopsy. Right, and we're making some efforts to reach the Eastern Regional Police PRO ASP Ebenezer Tete to give us the latest so far with happenings to confirm if really this happened in Somanya and what has been happening so far. Good afternoon to you, ASP. We are grateful for your time this afternoon. Hello, ASP.
Hello, good afternoon.
Right, we are grateful for your time this afternoon. Now, can you confirm?
Thank you very much.
Can you confirm the incident?
A quick correction, please. I've just been promoted to the rank of DSP, so I'm now DSP.
All right. We thank you for that correction there. Now, can you please confirm the incident in Somanya so far?
Yes, we have received a case of a child aged 6 years old who was playing with the grandfather's gun, and it accidentally fired when it pressed the trigger, killing his younger brother instantly. So as we speak now, we have deposited the body at Puwu Government Hospital whilst we make feverish arrangements to transport it to the police hospital to have the post-mortem or the autopsy done to determine the medical cause of death.
Now, what was your initial findings so far on the happening?
The initial findings is that the gun was left in the grandfather's room, and the way and manner it was left, it made it possible for the children to have access to the gun, and were playing with it, not knowing that it was loaded. And when the senior brother, the 6-year-old boy, pressed the trigger, the other brother was directly opposite him, and it fired, hitting him and killing him instantly. So that is what our initial findings have so far revealed. But we are going to ensure that the grandfather, whose property is the gun, is made to answer some serious questions, because the grandfather whose property the gun was should have kept the gun far away from the children, made it impossible for them to have access to them, let alone play with it. And this tragic accident, happened.
Okay.
That has tragically cut the life of this young boy prematurely.
Now,
I'm saying so because technically, we'll forward the docket to the AG's office anyway, but technically in law, this young boy has committed no offense. There's what we call dolly incapacitas. It is simply means the child is not capable of committing offense. At this age, 6 years old, is capable of thinking properly, knowing the repercussions of his actions. So even if he commits an offense at this age, 12 downwards, which is this case, the law says that he has committed no offense. So what will happen is that the grandfather will assist us seriously in answering some pertinent and serious questions. When we conclude our investigations, we will send the docket to the AG's office for advice, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so it means that it's likely this minor would be let go for the grandfather to take place if the docket is sent to the AG's office, as you're suggesting.
I will not
want to preempt
the gun, but
right.
I'm telling you the position of the law. Technically, the boy has committed no offense. That is the position of the law.
All right. We are grateful for your time. DSP Ebenezer Tete, who is the Eastern Regional Police PRO there. Well, quite a tragic incident happening in the Eastern region, but we would see how the outcome will be. Let's move away from that. And on Saturday, talking politics, the ruling New Patriotic Party will be holding its annual Regional Delegates Congress across the country. The Congress will see to the elections of new regional executives to steer the affairs of the party for the next 4 years. We cross over now to Kumasi to join our correspondent Decries as she interacts with the acting first national vice chairman of the NPP, Anto FF, who is in charge also of the Congress in the Ashanti region.
Tell us how far preparations have gone for the elections and conference on Saturday.
You saw me at the EC offices in Ashanti region. I was here to have a discussion with them concerning the election. I believe so far everything is set. On Monday, we brought the ballot papers to them. The venue is also set, Ejura Agri College. That's where we're going to have the conference.
So far, how many aspirants have duly qualified to be on the ballot paper for Saturday?
I think 38 people are contesting for various positions. I think the greatest number is happening on the Nasara coordinator, right? I think we have 6 people contesting for the position of Regional Nasara Coordinator. And I think it's good for the party. These are areas, Nasara is in charge of Zongos, and this is one particular area where we are not strong. So I'm happy to see 6 people trying to vie for the position. If you want to win the elections in 2020 and beyond, then Ashanti Regional Party should be a very strong one. I mean, look at the election results, and there's no dispute about it.
Aside the women organizer position that goes to women, would you say that you are encouraged with the number of women who are also aspiring for various positions that are vacant?
I'm not very happy about it. Out of the 10 positions, apart from the women organizer, there was only one woman who is contesting for the second vice chairman's position. I believe the women's wing should work harder than they've been doing. And one of their main objectives is to try to nurture women to take up leadership positions. This is so clear. So that if in an election we see only one woman contesting, I don't think it's very, very good.
How prepared are the delegates who will be coming from the various constituencies to come and vote on Saturday?
We are providing transport for every constituency. We are just praying to God that He grant us traveling mercy so that people arrive at Ejura safely. And I think they know why they are there. They are not representing themselves. They are going to vote because they are delegates. They represent a group of people. And that the main objective of the MPP in Ashanti region is to make sure that in 2020, we will get about 80% of the popular votes and win all the 47 seats in the constituency. So you should vote for people who will be prepared to champion this cause. And I think they should be able to do justice to it.
That is the acting first vice national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Mr. F.F. Anto, speaking to us on preparations ahead of the delegates conference on Saturday. From Kumasi, Beatrice Gabra, TV3.
And the MPP delegates conference will be taking part across all the country. We have our men on the ground all across, scattered, and ensure that all MG platforms will be feeding you with the detail as and when it happens. But let's move on to some more this afternoon. And the increase in industrialization in Ghana has led to a larger percentage of the Ghanaian workforce being exposed to lots of physical, chemical, biological, and psychological damages. But in Ghana, is there a system of monitoring, evaluating, and preventing such hazards? Well, in this report, Kwabna Edujemfi takes a scan of the workplace to determine if employees' safety is ensured.
On Saturday, April 7 this year, 6 contract workers at Newmont Ghana Gold Limited lost their lives following the collapse of a reclaimed tunnel roof at its Ahafo Mill expansion project. In November 2012, 9 people lost their lives through the collapse of a Melcom department store in Accra. These incidents highlight the hazards workers are exposed to in their work environment, while the Factories, Offices and Shops Act 1970 is yet to be implemented satisfactorily. Employees in Ghana are required by the Labour Act 2003, Act 651, to ensure that their employees are not exposed to conditions that will lead to work-related injuries and illness. In the same vein, employees are also expected to deliver their responsibilities, bearing in mind their duty of care. But are Ghanaian employers and employees aware of their safety regulations and responsibilities? The Department of Factory Inspectorate under the Ministry of Labour and Employment is mandated by law to inspect all work environment to ensure that employers adhere to safety regulations. Fred Ohine-Mensah is Chief Factories Inspector.
They know their right, but very often it is fear of dismissal. They find it difficult to, voice out some of these things.
Chairs, desk, emergency exit and fire extinguishers are some of the basic items that inspectors examine at work site.
If it's an office, the sitting facility of a person should be in a way where the worker will not feel pain in any part of the body. Where there should be a footrest, there should be a footrest. It shouldn't be a sitting facility where the feet will be hanging or where the person will have to stretch to be able to, connect to a knob or a handle You know, any process that the body will go through that will, you know, bring about pain, that is what we look out for.
The Bureau of Public Safety noted that every company is mandated by law to have a safety policy.
That gives you the direction how the company intends to go, and it also empowers the worker and the employer, what their rights are, what their responsibilities are. So if you come to a workplace where they don't have a policy bordering on safety, health and environment, this organization is not structured. They do not know where they are going regarding this very important discipline. I don't have to come looking for your policy. It must be pasted at vantage points within the organization. In these times, companies are even required to put it on their website. I know of companies who are now printing their workplace policy behind employees' salary pay slips.
Article 24, Clause 1 of the 1992 Constitution says that every person has the right to work under satisfactory, safe and healthy conditions.
Of course you can sue, but you need to be prudent. If you are suing, are you suing such that you leave the work? You know, you can't sue and remain in that environment. Secondly, if you are suing for damages, you know, in terms of particular injury you may have suffered. Until such damage has been occurred, until such injury has occurred, what are you suing to recover? Perhaps the workers' union in there may want to take it up.
With a workforce of less than 40 inspectors across the country, the Chief Factories Inspector, Fred Ohinemensa, admitted the outfit has not been able to carry out its duties efficiently. The company, according to him, the department is able to inspect about 3,000 out of the over 10,000 companies listed in their books each year.
If we have a full complement of the required staff, I think we can visit, you know, a number of companies at least once every year.
Ghana is yet to pass a national operational health and safety law. TV3, Kwabna Edu Jemfi.
Right, so news just in from the Ghana Meteorological Agency is a weather warning which says that a rainstorm observed on the southeastern border of the country is expected to move west to affect the east coast this afternoon and later affect central and western coast later in the day. The storm is expected to be preceded by strong winds and places to be affected right here on the screens between the 12 hours and 14 hours GMT. So I'm sure from now till 2 this afternoon, these are the areas, Aflao, Ada, Keta, and also from 13 hours to 16 hours GMT, that is from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. We're seeing some in Tema, Medina, Accra, as well as Kaswa. Now from 15 hours to 17 hours GMT, 3 to 5 p.m., Cape Coast, Salt Pond, Mankesim, and then 17 hours to 19 hours GMT, that is from 5 to 7 p.m., Sekendi, Takrady, and Axim. So take note of the areas. These areas would see a rainstorm expected, and it was observed on the southeastern border of the country, and is expected to move to the west to affect the east coast this afternoon and later affect central western coast later in the day. And this storm is expected to be preceded by strong winds, so make sure that you move around protected and stay safe within these areas that is being given by the Ghana Meteo Agency: Aflao, Adan, Keta, Tema, Medina, Accra, Kaswa, Cape Coast, Salt Pond, Mankesim, Sekendi, Takrady, as well as Axim. So make sure you're safe when the wind comes as well as the storm. We have sports after this. We're talking Arsene Wenger and more. Thank you so much, Alpha Sulabi, there with sports. To some international news now, and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has cut short his attendance at the Commonwealth Summit in London to deal with violent protests at home. Clashes have taken place in Northwest Province, where protesters are demanding jobs, housing and an end to corruption. Shops have been looted, roads barricaded and vehicles set alight. President Ramaphosa, who took office in February, has sought to encourage investment in South Africa during his visit to the UK. Protests in South Africa's northwest province erupted on Wednesday as demonstrators demanded the resignation of Provincial Premier Supra Mahumapelo, a member of Ramaphosa's governing African National Congress, the ANC. The situation in South Africa's northwest province is the worst unrest since Ramaphosa took office in February. Protesters are demanding jobs and housing as well as an end to corruption. Matho Mocheka, a member of the ANC's National Executive Committee, says the protests were a rude awakening for the party's leadership. South Africa's faltering economy has been a priority for Mr. Ramaphosa since he took over from former President Jacob Zuma. Growth had been weak and unemployment painfully high as Mr. Zuma's leadership was dogged by years of corruption allegations. Ghana and Cuba maintain a historic special relationship following the election of Miguel Diaz-Canel as Cuba's new president on May 19. The following report chronicles the relations between the two countries dating back to the fond affiliation between Ghana's former president, Jerry John Rawlings, and the late Cuban president, Fidel Castro.
Ghana was the first country to have diplomatic relations with Cuba after the revolution. The Ghana-Cuba relationship in recent times has been primarily in the areas of education and medical partnership. Hundreds of Ghanaians have been educated in Cuba to become doctors, vets, agriculturists, and engineers, whilst many hospitals in Ghana, especially in remote areas, have benefited from the services of Cuban professors and doctors. Ghana has also offered continued support for Cuba at the United Nations and the African Union. Ghana's former president, Jerry John Rawlings, and the late Cuban president, Fidel Castro, also held strong relations. Fidel Castro came to power in 1959 and ushered in a communist revolution, defying the United States for decades. His supporters viewed him as a man who stood up to America during the Cold War and returned Cuba to the people. His critics, however, called him a dictator. Fidel Castro was believed to have loved Africa, standing by the continent in the most trying periods of his leadership. The ISIL of youth in Cuba had at its peak 3,000 Ghanaians. During the recent visit of Vice President of the Cuban Council of State, Madame Mercedes Lopez Acia, former President Jerry John Rawlings called on Cuba to continue to offer support towards Ghana's socio-economic development.
Let's do some entertainment news now. Right, so it remains the wish of many Ghanaians that Ebony's demise reunites her divorced parents. But is Nana Puwu Kwarteng thinking of a comeback with his ex-wife? Well, this is what Ebony's dad had to say.
And there's been so much talks about the fact that Mr. Puwu Kwarteng and your ex-wife, Miss Decries, you look so good and cool together. Anywhere you are spotted, and that is getting a lot of interest and attention.
It has always been the case. You just realize when the spotlight was on me. That's it. Has been always the case. You just realize because my barber, hence, certain things that I do, and I wouldn't name, but the answers are simple. We've always been like that, trust me. Yeah. Nothing special, trust me.
The hope of a lot of people
let them keep hoping. It's good. But we've always been like this, trust me. Always.
People would like to see daddy and mommy together again. Have you considered that?
We've always been the same.
Yeah,
there's nothing changed.
As in marrying again?
No. We've always been the case. Well, what do you mean by marrying? Yeah. Who told you what? What did you hear?
What we're hearing is that Ebony's demise seems to have reunited.
That's it. We've always been that. Yeah. There isn't no united, no community. No, it's just like you see.
And staying under one roof.
And staying yes. Just like you see in period. Let it be. The man involved is here. Take his words. And let it be.
Anything in the pipeline, you living under one roof again.
We've always remained as we've been and as we see now.
Under one roof.
We've always remained same. Like we are now. like you see.
Your relationship.
No,
I'm talking
like
about.
you see, my dear. Let's move on, if you wouldn't mind. I like that in you.
Maybe you would like to find your final words to Ghanaians, everybody who has been supporting
them. Amazingly, I do thank you guys for the support. It has been amazing, awesome. And I so very much appreciate.
Right, so she's usually referred to as Mami Genge in the local parlance as Wicked Woman or the Wicked Mother-in-law. I'm talking about Ace actress Grace Norte. Well, she opens up on her character when she's in front of the camera.
Mona, you mean you are going to sit in that kind of situation? Nothing doing. I hate rivalry, and you must hate it too. You've got to take immediate steps to establish your position.
Ma, that woman is strong.
Try other means.
With a career spanning over 4 decades, Grace Nakwali Norte is one of Ghana's few distinguished actresses. The veteran actress became a household name in the 80s and 90s due to her exceptional acting skills. She carved a niche for herself, playing the role of a wicked mother-in-law.
I don't drink polluted water. You can poison me. I don't drink your water. Leave Sammy alone, or you see what will happen to you. When you see me playing the role of a bad mother-in-law, and you are really a bad mother-in-law, look at me, and then you look at yourself, whether you have to change or continue being a bad mother-in-law. That's one thing with me.
At the peak of her outstanding career, Grace earned names like Mami Magani and Mami Jata as perception that she was rude and no-nonsense grew. In real life, Grace Norte is the exact opposite of how she has been portrayed in movies.
When you are playing a role, you put yourself into the character and you play the role very well. But then, people think I'm wild. I'm not like that. I heard there was a house near our house. Anytime something happens, like I Grace Norte here, Grace Norte here, but I'm not like that.
So you are a very quiet person.
Yes, by nature. I like singing, dancing. I like to advise people, and then I enjoy reading, listening to the radio and all that. But to quarrel, it's not my line.
The veteran actress recognizes that in order to excel in all fields of endeavor, perseverance is key.
Whenever I got a script, I know this script I've gotten to take me somewhere. I got very interested. I put myself into the character and played the role as if it's a real thing.
Her best acting partners were Fred Amugi and ever-humorous Mark Jordan Amate, a.k.a. Sugar Daddy. You may have seen Grace Norte play the role of a wife, but there is one thing the celebrated actress never did: accepting scripts that required that she lies on a bed with a man.
And I have a husband in the house. So before I take a script and I accept a script to play somebody's wife, I tell him about it. So I don't accept scripts which I have to lie down with a man.
Right, so that would do for Midday Live this afternoon. Remember, there's a weather warning. Check 3news.com for that and more. My name is Nanikia Mensah. Have a good afternoon and enjoy your lunch.